I think we're live now. Hi there.
Yay, I'm alive.
Well, I am definitely alive too.
Thank goodness.
Welcome to the Shame-Free Zone. I'm Veronica Monet, your host, and with me today is my good friend and colleague, Amanda Eloesh. I hope I said that last name the right way. Did I?
Nailed it.
Nailed it. Good. So, Amanda, I'm really excited about today's cerebral journey because we're going to just be talking about it because I'm actually I'm coming up on my 37 years clean and sober. And a little known, I've been a member of Alcoholics. Actually, I'm not supposed to say that. So, been a member of 12-step recovery for all that time. And I find it very fascinating because a little known piece of history about AA, I can say that, is that one of the co-founders, Bill Wilson, actually was way into LSD.
Yeah.
And attributed a lot of his spiritual awakenings to doing that. Yes. And I think it's documented in a book by Don Lattin. Nice. And I can't remember the name of the book, but anyway, it was really a shock to me to learn that, but I'm just so hungry for information about how we can elevate our spirituality and also heal trauma, since that's something that I do as a relationship coach, through the use of psychedelics. Yeah. And I know that's your specialty.
Yes.
And before we jump off into that, I want to just read a little bit about you and your bio. Thank you. Then I'm going to actually ask you to take us on a little bit of the journey of how you got here, because you've got a very interesting professional path.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. You do. Okay. So let me get that bio up here. All right. Let me introduce you to Amanda Eloesh. She is the founder and president of a dogma-free, sacred psychedelic living wisdom nonprofit. And she is the quicker waker upper and has been receiving visions and guidance for these powerful times, who can argue with that, of uncertainty and transformation. Oh, yeah. For over 40 years. Oh, my God. You don't look old enough to have been doing that. All of that. Thank you. Must be doing something right. She's passionately pursued academic and mystical initiations to help you access your inalienable sovereignty, one of my favorite words, by eliminating painful subconscious patterns and core wounds that might be keeping you limited and stuck. And don't we all want that? This lady's very educated. She's received her master's degree in counseling psychology and expressive arts therapy, as well as her certification in integrative medicine, guided imagery from the California Institute of Integral Studies. And she has shared her gifts at the California Pacific Medical Center, the Institute for Health and Healing, and Marin General Hospital. We're going to get a little info from that about what happened over there at that hospital. She is the author of Unlock Your Success Codes and Go Ask Alice Oracle and Tea Party Game. Oh my God, I hope we can put the link for that below, because that sounds like a lot of fun.
Yes.
Yeah, and lots of people hire Amanda to discover and strengthen their spiritual path. She's a spiritual success mentor, and she helps people clear their subconscious blocks and activate their spiritual gifts with the sacred feminine archetypes, which is really a huge calling for me, sacred feminine, as well as plant medicine practices and rituals. So we're going to learn a little bit about some of the ceremonies that she guides, and we'll definitely be providing links in case you're interested in some of her assistance. But right now, I really want to ask you, Amanda, about how do you go from Marin General Hospital and the halls of academia to running a nonprofit church, dogma-free church, about psychedelic healing?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, I had as you read in my bio, I've been doing this work for over 40 years. I started when I was in elementary school. Actually, I've been a channel tuned into source wisdom my whole life and really curious about consciousness and subconscious because I was like, I was considered gifted. And so I knew some of what I was having access to was a benefit.
Right.
I also knew some of it was really I didn't see how it fit into the 3D reality that I was
Yeah.
living. And so I was really curious as a kid, like how much of this is real? How much of it can I benefit from? How much of it can I share with other people? Because I also knew that I was here to be of service. So I've been really passionately pursuing consciousness and subconscious and imagination and manifestation, and learned about guided imagery when I was 10 years old, basically in this program for gifted kids,
Oh, wow.
and learned
Okay.
about and I heard about placebos, and I was like, oh, okay, well, 3D humans do recognize some things that don't make scientific sense. And so I'm like, okay, so that was exciting. So I'm like, okay, some of this maybe I can apply. So I started to use what I was learning to help myself. I had obsessive compulsive disorder. I self-diagnosed. I wasn't diagnosed with it, but I definitely had to do certain things, and it was obsessive,
Yeah, yeah.
for sure.
I relate to that self-diagnosis.
Yeah. I had an eating disorder. I had body dysmorphic disorder, a lot of body shame because I went through puberty I was basically was a grown up very fast. I was an old soul. I was kind of psychic and a little too open, not knowing how to handle it. I was very, very tall, went through puberty very, very early. So I was
Wow.
just like a total freak
Oh,
growing up,
yeah.
and trying to make sense of what the fuck was going on, and how do I navigate this? And
Yeah,
then
and
how can I share it?
I would imagine that there must have been some times that you realized I maybe shouldn't talk about this because people were getting upset.
Yeah, yes. I don't even remember consciously thinking I can't talk about this. I just remember incidences where me opening my mouth, speaking my truth, got me
Yeah.
invited to go home,
Oh, wow.
or
Oh,
raised a lot
wow.
of eyebrows, or just
Yeah.
the concern. And I think over time just conditioned, like, there's no space for this. I can experience it for myself, but it obviously doesn't belong here in this world, and I had
Oh,
access to other worlds, so I could go off and enjoy being with the fairies and the leprechauns, on
uh-huh.
my own. And I
Yeah.
liked playing on my own and being in that magical world. I just was like, there's nobody else to share it with. And then I moved to California and realized there's lots of people to share it with. I was just in Utah for too long.
Yes, yes, you were in Utah, and that's oh my God, my condolences. And no offense to people in Utah that might be watching this, but
uh,
if you're there, you know what
yeah.
we're talking about.
Utah had a really wonderful underground scene, which is where I first, like so I'm jumping around a bit, but
Yeah.
I was really excited about, I was very smart. And so I was into science and academics that way. And I think over time just kind of shifted over into all of the affirmation and, scholarships and awards, to be smart. Um, and then I got to a point where I was trying to move forward into a master's program, of course, directly out of my bachelor's, because I was very academically motivated,
Right.
and I couldn't get accepted into a master's program, which didn't make any sense because I was just top of my class, and all the recommendations. But one of the things I'd studied was Zen,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh, okay, instead of pushing against this wall, I'm going to just hold back and be curious. And I just randomly, trying to get into this master's program, took a summer course from the same program, and it
Yeah.
was called shamanic drumming. I'd maybe heard the word shamanic, and so it sounded exotic. I didn't know what it meant. And
Yeah.
I had a full-on shamanic experience, even being
Wow.
very skeptical about it. And it opened me up back into my spiritual path. And that was the message, was like, you, you know, there's a lot that you can do, but you need to heal. You need to do a lot of healing first.
So
Right after that.
that was literally east meets west for you.
Yes, yes,
Wow.
exactly. And I was in my early 20s, just out of my, just a couple of years after completing my bachelor's degree. So I was probably like 23, 24,
Yeah.
and just became a performance artist. Did my own expressive arts therapy, as a
Uh-huh.
performance artist, a fire performer, a belly dancer, a spoken word.
Wow.
Um, and just started to really awaken myself spiritually, and the magic started coming back, and I realized, like, oh, I had disconnected. I had thought all of those gifts were tied to being Mormon, and once I realized, like, all those
Um,
questions and all those concerns, and like, oh, I'm a bad Mormon, I'm not thinking the way a good Mormon girl should think. So I'm just like, oh, I don't, because I also, in my family, is a lineage of hands-on healers and visionary uh,
yeah.
gifts. And so, but that's all very, very Mormon. So I'm like, okay, I don't deserve that. I don't get to have that. And it was like, no, this is your gift. It's way bigger than Mormonism. Here, here you're back on path. And I
Wow.
just followed the spiritual breadcrumbs, and started out very anti drugs, because I was born and raised Mormon, and through
Well,
the
you can't,
Nancy
yeah.
Reagan Just Say No era. And
Well, and just to explain to our viewers who maybe aren't familiar with the Mormon religion, but my grandmother was Mormon, and my best friend really was the next door neighbor. But anyway, I was raised in a different Christian cult, so she was the closest thing I had to a best friend. Was
mm,
also Mormon, um, and Mormonism, is like even things like caffeine is taboo.
yeah,
So,
yep,
so drug. Oh
absolutely.
my God, no.
Oh my gosh, no. For sure not. And also was married to a man who had bipolar and was an alcoholic and medicating with cannabis. And so I had really negative association with it.
Sure.
Um, but through my own spiritual awakening, and just all these gifts and this connection with source started coming back more and more, I started doing self-care ritual, and ritual around my home. And a friend gave me some beautiful cannabis from the Radical Fairies, if you know that community.
Sure.
And I started smoking it on my own, and it started helping me to really access this multidimensional part of myself again,
Hmm.
and did deep healing with myself. The guided visuals, guided imagery and meditation got deeper with it.
Yeah.
Over time, started sharing it with other people, and they were like, "This is amazing." Then got invited into started working with DMT, 5-MeO DMT, which helped me to access even deeper parts of my psyche, because I've known that my gift and my work in this world is to go into the shadows, go into the subconscious, to rescue the light, to bring love to all parts of the self. And the 5-MeO DMT really helped me to be aware of what consciousness does, especially through altered states,
And
and
I think
learn.
this would be a good time to just kind of
Yes,
let people know what DMT is.
DMT is referred to as the spirit molecule, and
Mhm.
it is active in all of our bodies. It is a huge amount of it's released when we're born, and a huge amount of it is released when we die.
Ah,
And it's actually going through our system all the time. It is our timeless self. It is more of our right brain self that is beyond, without time
yeah.
and without limitations of space,
Mm.
basically our multidimensional selves. But our liver produces some chemical that breaks it down and prevents us from being in that state all the time.
Right.
So when it's in ayahuasca, people can smoke it in different forms. And I had it to smoke, and I was working with it consciously, unconsciously for a long time, then consciously. And
Right.
it really showed me how the human brain works and how it likes to try to avoid pain. It
Yeah.
runs away. And it showed me that everything that's uncomfortable, whether it's physical and mental, emotional, spiritual, phenomenological, relational, outside, whatever we're experiencing in our lives that's painful is an alarm that's trying to get our attention. And so it showed me how to bring my attention right in
Mm.
to the alarm signal and listen to it and turn it off.
Ah,
And by bringing love, by bringing healing, and I started to recognize that everything that's painful that's going on in our lives, because we are these divine love created beings,
right.
and when there's pain happening, uh then there's some signal going off that we're not aware of on some level, multidimensional, often grounded in a human experience in the subconscious as
Yeah.
a program for survival.
Uh-huh.
And to get out of those painful patterns, to get out of those stuck places, we have to turn our consciousness around and bring healing and love so that those parts are no longer in trauma. They can elevate, they can join with our conscious selves. We are more aligned as our multidimensional selves, and we're more powerful that way. And so,
So I want to just
yes,
ask you, I want to backtrack a little bit because
yes.
when you tell us a little bit about your experience working in hospital environments where
Oh,
I
yeah.
believe you were working with people who were having emotional issues, weren't you?
All kinds of things. I
Yeah.
got to apply it. That's what I really appreciated
So
about it
maybe if you
is,
could kind of
yeah,
contrast
yeah,
being part of the Western medical system,
yeah.
working with people's trauma versus working with people's trauma through plant medicine.
Yeah, happy to. So I had been developing this, how do I do it? How does it work for me? How can I share it with other people? Um, and then did my master's in counseling psychology at California Institute of Integral Studies, and my practicum was through California Pacific Medical Center, specifically at Marin General Hospital, the Institute for Health and Healing, and Marin Cancer Resource Center. And
Okay.
so, because they had a whole program in guided imagery, and I was like, wow, that I've been doing this my whole life, basically.
Yeah.
And so I got to go in and work with people in palliative care, about to go to hospice,
Right.
pre-surgery, post-surgery,
Right.
maternity, post, after having a baby,
Uh-huh.
everything. I got to go in the kids, ward. So I got to go and apply my work to everything.
But
People who,
you weren't actually giving psychedelics to
no, no, no,
those
no. I was
patients.
just working with guided meditation and expressive arts.
Okay. So
Yes.
and what was did you find that what I'm basically getting at is there a difference? So if for somebody who's watching this, like why do psychedelics when there is guided imagery?
Yeah.
What's the difference?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, first of all, I'll say that you can do profound healing without any entheogens or psychedelics.
Yeah.
You know, we can get to altered states through breath work. We can get to altered states through deep meditation and movement practices.
Yeah.
And so I had been doing this work with people for many years and continue to do work with people who aren't interested in psychedelics at all to do the work. But what I've found is that in an altered state, we drop a lot of our boundaries, we
Right.
drop a lot of our armoring, we
Right.
access more layers because we're all multidimensional beings. We're starting to have scientific proof, the quantum field, we're having an impact and we're being impacted by multiple dimensions and layers and frequencies that
Yes.
we haven't been told about or talking about for a lot forever, and now it's starting to come in more and more. And so these altered states, when done in worked with in a safe and sacred way with
Right.
someone who knows how to navigate these realms and knows about how to support, that then it's like faster. You're all of a sudden like, oh, okay, now I'm super aware. Like with the 5-MeO DMT, oh, I can see what my consciousness was doing and I can circle it back.
Yeah.
With cannabis, which is how I first started doing my healing work, now we know, just it's now becoming more mainstream, about the endocannabinoid system, which is our
Right.
bliss. It's the part of us that's meant to create bliss in our bodies. Cannabis activates it. It
Yeah.
can make us feel paranoid if we don't know how to work with it in a good way. But when we do, what we release is anandamide, oxytocin, the things that we feel when we're falling in love and when we're drinking ceremonial cacao. So, you don't need it, and it is an accelerator. And
Like,
and especially the organic plant, like the plants and the fungi, they're alive. They are consciousness. When we ingest them, we're dieting with them. They are becoming us, literally, like anything we eat. We
right.
turn it into us. We are welcoming it into our beings, and they are informing us directly, cellularly,
Right.
energetically, consciously. They're reminding us of our interconnectedness of everything and helping us to be more tuned into our multidimensional selves,
And
where some of the funk exists and it's hiding until we have greater vision to access it.
so do you think, since you do both, you work with people who aren't interested in psychedelics and people who are, and what I'm hearing is basically you're working to heal people of those blocks. Do you do you experience it, like, do you sometimes have someone who maybe is a little bit reticent to use psychedelics, but you've noted that they could make better progress if they did? And I'm thinking
Mm.
particularly about people with trauma, because I work with trauma,
Yeah.
and I find that sometimes as a coach, even though I'll be using internal family systems, which is, recognized that it treats trauma, they, you're still going to hit this wall with some people where they're just not going to
Yeah.
be able to get beyond the wall
Yeah.
without the
Yeah.
help of something else.
Yeah. Well, that's the tricky thing, that working with trauma, working with helping people to deal with trauma, is that it is so self-protective,
Yeah.
and it's like it's trying to stay safe by staying hidden, by staying the same.
Yep.
And so it does everything, and it's operating in the subconscious, which directs our thoughts, behaviors, decisions. So fear is running the show for a lot of people, and making that courageous decision to even say, I want to heal this trauma, not just anesthetize it, not just do the things that turn off the alarm system, but
Right.
actually go in, because it feels overwhelming and horrifying. And if you don't know what it's like to be free, the
Yeah.
alarm's not going off anymore, you don't have any concept of what that's like. And so all you're aware of is, I'm already at the edge of my capacity now. Why
Yeah.
the fuck would I want to go deeper, right to the center? Like, why would I want to walk into
Yeah.
the core of it? And so it's horrifying. And so, yes, there are a lot of people and some friends of mine that they're like, if I was ever to do that, I would do it with you. And I get it. I trust you. I know you walk the talk,
Yeah.
but it's just not my thing. And I feel like, oh my gosh, you're keeping yourself safe. So yes, I know that and taking baby steps.
Yeah.
My whole approach is, let's be honoring to the part of you that's horrified, like, because that's the lowest common denominator, but that part needs to be seen and held and
Yeah.
valued. And so let's slow down. Let's not create an agenda at all, except for just resourcing these parts so that they can relax and
And
start to say,
that's
oh,
really like
okay, I'll have an edible, like, and some people may never change that. And that's totally fine. I really honor people's sovereignty.
yeah.
I've had multiple people where spirit is like screaming, like, you can help this person, you can help them, you've got, like, there's something special going on, you could put your hand on them right now and help them. And I so want to do that. And we just, and people, I've had people who, like, I will help you for free, and they, like, don't want it,
Yeah.
because it's scary. And so I'm just like, I always honor people's sovereignty and pray for them. And yes, I think that there's a lot, even in, like, the realms of cannabis. Like I said, it is in our system has been
Yeah.
created, has been evolved to have this loving, healing relationship with this very specific plant, which goes back, references to cannabis. That's the oldest name I know for it, is Egyptian.
Yeah.
And the Egyptians were working with it. And at many, many times, my meditative ceremonial work with it has been just as profound as a DMT journey. And I've had multiple people who've sat with me even without any medicine. Dave Navarro, I did a sound healing at Esalen. Dave Navarro's the guitarist for Jane's Addiction. He
Uh-huh.
was in that, and he said that took me to the same place that DMT journey does. And I've had multiple people say that. So
So
we could,
speaking about that, Amanda,
yes,
um, I think I have talked about how sex can also be
yes,
a transformative
absolutely.
healing agent. And I lead the couples that I work with. I teach them about how to work with difficult triggers, trauma triggers during lovemaking. And it's interesting because sometimes they'll be like, "This is supposed to lead to great sex," and I'm like, "Trust me, it will." Um, but so yes, I think probably we can use a lot of different modalities and a lot of different substances. I'm wondering if you could break down for the viewer what do you think it matters whether somebody uses ayahuasca and by the way, are you using ayahuasca and DMT synonymously? Because I thought ayahuasca had a couple components in it.
Ayahuasca, yeah, I'm using them differently because DMT is very specific.
Yeah,
And yeah,
yeah, that's what I thought. And is DMT manufactured or grown?
both. I
Both.
mean, DMT exists in ayahuasca, DMT exists in acacia, DMT exists in the bufo toad,
Oh,
DMT exists in a lot of different plants,
fascinating.
uh, phalaris grass. There's just so many. It grows all over the place. It's
Yeah,
all over the place. It's
yeah.
inside of us.
I recently saw a video of also this wasn't DMT, but it was a bear who got into some honey that had turned psychedelic.
Nice.
He was just like laid back having a trip, and the people who were kind of like trying to help him. So imagine animals have been getting high for
Oh, absolutely.
billions of years.
Absolutely.
If somebody was like saying, well, okay, I'm interested, but like, what do these different substances do? would
Yeah,
you would you say that they do different things, or would you say that
absolutely.
okay,
They
go
do
down
different
that road and help us
things.
understand?
They definitely do different things because they're all different chemicals. They activate, the endocannabinoid system versus the DMT that's in our system. I don't know if they interact, but they're definitely separate parts of our anatomy,
So
and different things
how about we
activate them.
go, I'll just like say a particular substance. You can tell me how that differs from the next one. So for instance, how would LSD and MDMA differ?
From each other.
Yes, how would they interact with somebody who had trauma?
Well, MDMA is not so much psychedelic. It's very heart opening. It tends to really open up the senses and create a softening and opening, and it does activate that sense of bliss and trust. And so it can really, really help with trauma in a way where there are people who are like, I don't even know what not trauma feels like,
Oh,
and so it's triggering to even talk about that possibility because knowing that that's possible and that I've never felt it makes me angry and feel more traumatized. So for
yeah.
somebody like that, I would say it's such a godsend to have. And I'd say MDMA and Wachuma, aka San Pedro, have similarities that way because they're very soft, they're very
Mm,
gentle,
mm,
they open up the senses, they open up the heart, and can help us to feel that sense of connection with ourselves, with other people, less armored.
right.
Whereas LSD is psychoactive, and if somebody, when somebody has trauma, not to say it's imaginary, but we relive it because we're going back into the trauma story. So
Ah,
it's in the imagination. And
right.
so the imagination can be a little bit of a minefield. And
Mm,
so it can shut down creativity, and it can be a scary place to go because it gets activated in there. And so LSD might not be the best thing unless it was maybe in microdoses. But I would
yeah,
want to really support that person in feeling masterful in their own imagination, meaning creating a sanctuary for themselves that they're
yeah,
used to. So working with the imagination in a resourcing way and maybe baby step into it if they felt called. So
yeah.
for me, there's a combination when somebody's interested. Certain medicines call to people, and I make sure it's more of an inner calling and not a like, well, my friends did it, it was cool, it's on my bucket list.
Got it.
That's not a good idea. But if
Yeah,
somebody's like, I keep getting this message and then it keeps coming to me that sacred mushrooms, Nino Santos, psilocybin would be helpful. I
right.
tune into that, and based on what I know about it and what they've shared, like, yes, and then let's microdose, let's baby step into it.
Yeah,
So there's, for somebody who's curious but afraid of how it might impact them, it's
right.
important to do it in a really educated way. I would say always do it with the help of an experienced, educated guide who's not just good intentions. There's my first ayahuasca experience was held by somebody with excellent intentions and super smart, could probably, I know, has written books on it, but should not have been guiding a ceremony.
And why?
Uh, I could just feel it. I could
Uh-huh.
feel it. And knowing is different than embodiment, and knowing is different than having the gift and the
Yeah,
initiation of
yeah.
holding space for somebody else. I also know because this has been, gosh, that was like 2003. So it's been almost 20 years later.
Right.
Just a few years ago, connected with, there was a very small group. I was the only
Uh-huh.
woman in the group.
Uh-huh.
He shared with me that everybody was still trying to put things back together from that journey. And one person
Oh,
actually did go into psychosis, and as far as I know, did not make it back.
oh my
So
God.
it can happen. The thing is, these plants all are benign, they're all benevolent. But the trauma that we have these days, especially those of us who aren't from the culture, from the sacred tradition that these plants come from, it is out of context, right? So we have this trauma and we're healing it, and it emerges. We don't have the community, we don't have the sacred land, we don't have the context, we don't have the
Yeah,
tradition
yeah,
holding us. And so then all of a sudden, here's this trauma, and without the proper support, without the proper container, it's too much, it's overwhelming. And then we're not in a village setting where if somebody's mentally ill, everybody is there to hold that person and help make sure that they're okay. It's
yeah.
like, well, good luck with that. you know
Oh my God.
So that's why I know. That's why
Yeah.
I know. And also the ayahuasca was like, Amanda, you've been initiated already and you're fine.
Yeah.
You're totally safe and I've got you. And ayahuasca's always been very gentle and kind to me. And I
Mm.
know she can kick ass. She's dismantled me, but I've always been like, oh, feels so sweet. You know, she will take me apart. People are like, what's happening? I'm like, I'm just being dismantled right now. I'm good.
Wow. Wow.
Um,
Huh.
but yeah, that I think, it's in my human design. I'm go to the depths in the darkness and I'm very, very
Yeah.
expansive. And
Yeah.
some people are made to hold that space and some people are not. And if you try to hold that space from a place of, well, everybody's talking about it, it's cool, it will kick your ass and it will
Yeah.
unfortunately likely harm somebody else.
And that's a really thing. I think that would be great to distinguish just getting high. Like I started this program saying I've been clean and sober for 37 years in another week. Um,
Beautiful.
and yeah, so the idea that sobriety, like I would say in the area that I live in, there's a lot of people who think, oh yeah, we took a sacred journey just last weekend and it was great and we learned so much. And you're like, what'd you learn? And like, I don't know, man, but it was really great. And nothing in their life changes at
Yeah.
all. So can you kind of help us just for people who might get pulled
Yeah.
into a group that's like saying we're all going to do it and it's going to be great and you'll just be so elevated and enlightened and how can they be judicious
Mhm.
and keep themselves safe and actually get the healing that they're after?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say, really, because like I said, I have sat with powerful indigenous shamans who have darkness that they're not addressing. I
Ah,
know they have good intentions. They have the right color skin and background and lineage,
right.
but they've caused harm. So it's like, you have to really do due diligence. You have to kind of know yourself. You have to really pay attention. Am I doing this because I want to tell people I did this? Is
Uh-huh.
my spirit saying, hey, it's time and this is your medicine and
Yeah.
the signs showing up.
Yeah.
And also it's really important to get great preparation and great integration need to be a part of it because even in a ceremonial setting that's safe and sacred, which
Yes.
happens and they're available, like many, many years ago, I was in the Amazon and ayahuasca said, Amanda, I'm a big fucking deal. And you have known just because I work with energy and I, do mudra practices and visualizations and I know how to work with the energy in my body.
Yes.
And so I've cultivated this way of preparing, being in ceremony, working with the energy in my body, and then integrating afterwards. And the ayahuasca is like, people don't know how to do that, especially Westerners who are coming in to these indigenous medicine ceremonies.
Yeah.
All they're getting is a list of dietary recommendations and maybe don't have sex, maybe try to do a digital detox, but there's so much more that people can do to
Right.
really step into it, experience it fully, and then integrate it afterwards.
You actually have like a program where people work with you for on trauma and on
Yeah.
issues before you ever do the plant ceremony,
Yes.
and then you unpack it afterwards.
Yeah.
So it's kind of more of an extended thing.
It's a 30-day thing, which is or
Uh,
not 30, excuse me, 90-day,
90 days.
which isn't very much, but for as I've been really blown away by what people are doing in that period of time because when we're slow and gentle and loving, these
Yeah.
parts that are in trauma are ready. They are so ready. They as soon as they recognize that genuine loving kindness that they
Yes.
can trust is available, that healing can happen like that. And I've heard traditional psychotherapists, people I know and love, and that's their career. They're like, oh, people say there's no quick fix. And I'm like, well, There is. It's courageous. It's deep. It's like going in, I'm going to go meet my shadow, and it's love, and it's without agenda. And
But
ironically, the slower and gentler
yeah,
you go in with full presence and help people to really witness their deepest, darkest shadow with
yeah,
love and kindness, all of a sudden they realize, oh, this thing that's been haunting me that I've thought was the worst possible,
yeah,
slimiest, grossest thing a person could be is actually a really beautiful, valuable part of myself. It doesn't take that long to do that for the most part when the person that you're with, like you, has done. I've gone on that journey myself, so I can not only I'm walking the talk, but I embody it,
yeah,
and then I can look at other people. I did child welfare for 11 years. I saw a lot of horrible things and then know the history. Like, this parent was raised that way, so it hurt people hurt people.
hurt people. Yes,
Healing
they
people
do.
heal people. And
Yeah,
so so making sure that we're doing our own inner work, and making sure you're working with someone who is transparent, who's not trying to pretend that their shit don't stink, who's not trying to pretend that they've never been in a dark place, and owning it, and just and listen and trust your body, because the body knows. The
yeah.
body will say yes or no.
And I just want to stress that when you call yourself the quicker waker upper, you're contrasting yourself with what you have a degree in, which is psychotherapy, which is oftentimes, especially if it's CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, can go on for years and you almost see nothing happen.
It's
Um,
only as effective. Traditional psychotherapy on average is only as effective as a placebo.
oh my God, that's just
I
terrible.
learned that in my master's program for counseling psychology.
Well, and I believe it. I believe it because I know I worked with one therapist for 4 years, and honestly, it was great to have a friend to talk to every week and tell my problems
That's
to.
what it that's
I don't feel like there was any movement in those 4 years.
Yeah.
But 90 days is not that. It's not like, oh, a weekend getting high with your friends. And I just
Yeah.
want to stress that, because even when you say quicker, you're contrasting it with psychotherapy, not
Yeah.
with somebody going off for a weekend in the mountains.
Correct.
And I think that's a really important distinction. And also, I really love that you're talking about, setting the intentions and doing the preparation work for it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of in line with some of the research that's being done at
Oh, yeah.
organizations like MAPS, where they're trying to get the government to actually make it legal to do plant assisted therapies. And it's not about, a weekend of kicking with your friends. It's really
No.
about working with a professional who can help you,
Yeah.
um, and somebody who knows how to work with the plants.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think all that stuff is really important to highlight for anybody who's interested in this. And I'm just wondering if you want to tell a little bit more about what you're offering and how
Mm-hmm.
people can. Um,
Yes, I love it. First of all, I'll say that Matthew, my partner, and I, every single month, we offer a free online entheogen, which is a generating God within. It's a respectful word for psychedelic. It
okay.
integrates the sacredness, but we do an entheogen preparation and integration online that's free. It's confidential, and anybody's welcome to sign up for it. Just connect with me and I'll get you on our mailing list. Livingwisdomchurch.org will get you on our mailing list if you go there. And
Now,
then
how do you do it online? Are people actually taking a substance
I'm
or?
sorry. We just tell people. It's just informative. It's
Oh,
entheogen
okay.
preparation and integration. So
Got it.
people are interested in learning more about it, or they had an experience and they need support. It's a support
Oh,
circle.
oh, beautiful.
Yeah, we
Beautiful.
do that for free because we're passionate about it. And then I do work with people for 90 days. That's typically as long as they need my support, and more
Yeah.
they're feeling complete and pretty happy even sooner, which is great.
Yeah.
But 90 days is typically how long I work with people, and it usually includes a medicine ceremony.
Yeah.
And depending on what their comfort level is, it could be cannabis, it could be wachuma. So we're, real specific, and it's tailor made to each person, whether they have known trauma,
Right.
uh, or, different things.
Or just the trauma that everybody's suffering from in the last, you
Exactly.
know.
Like the
Oh,
everyday trauma of being a human in this time, in
in
this day
this
and age.
time, it's gotten pretty
Yeah.
intense here.
Yeah. Everybody's got trauma in their system,
Yeah.
honestly. And then I'm doing a master class. It's free. There is a $22 seat deposit that you get back
Uh-huh.
when you attend. This coming Monday, Labor Day, the
Ah,
5th, I'm doing, it's called Entheo Jedi Masterclass, Entheo Jedi. So weaving in entheogen,
yeah.
becoming masterful, basically working with sacred psychedelics.
Yeah.
Because again, this is near and dear to my heart. It's been a you know, lifelong cultivation of how
Yeah.
to really work with altered states. Maybe you don't need any entheogens. Maybe you're like me, and you just kind of go into those multidimensional realms, and you'd like better mastery. Um, so
Oh,
that's what I love about entheogen, even though it really was created to be an alternative word for psychedelics. For me, it's like when we have these God experiences, these
yeah.
samadhis, these ineffable experiences, a lot of people don't really know how to ground them, how to integrate them. So
Right.
how do you work with these experiences, whether you're bringing them on through ingesting, you're bringing them on through sex, you're bringing them on through breath work, you're bringing them on through whatever, but how do you train your body, your mind, and your spirit to masterfully engage with this multidimensional awareness, awakening the super senses, and becoming a masterful mind, body, spirit complex
Hmm.
soul in the third dimension and
Yeah.
beyond?
Yeah. Really. Seriously. Well, that's all beautiful. And we'll put all the links below,
Yeah.
obviously, so that people can get to those.
Yes.
And before we go, one of the things that I just wanted to give you a chance to address, and I already kind of know the answer to it, but why what you do in California is legal, whereas for other people, it's right now, I think only legal in the state of Washington and Oregon. Am I
Right.
right about that?
I'm not sure about all of the legalities. I know decriminalized nature, which started in Oakland with Carlos Plazola, that's going all over the place, and there's more and more. And decriminalizing is different than legalizing.
True.
So it all is still kind of gray area, but Living Wisdom is technically a church.
Yeah.
I don't often use the name church because it can trigger people, but we are dogma free.
Yeah.
But we claim, as part of our articles of incorporation, we claim sacred plant medicine
Yeah.
as our sacraments. These are sacraments for us, and we
Exactly.
truly work with them in a sacred way.
Yeah.
It's not recreational. It does often feel amazing, and helps elevate us, but it's not recreational. It's ceremonial,
Yeah.
and we do it in a very supportive and contained way.
Mm.
And so, yes, there is protection there. And then California in general, it just, they're not really, I don't think it's just becoming more and more welcome.
It is. And I'm really grateful for that. Really grateful that
Yeah.
in general, the United States is finally starting to realize that, there is healing that doesn't have to take place in a
Yes.
um, doctor's office.
Yes. And the government is starting to finally recognize and admit that all of the propaganda, like, yes, cocaine is highly addictive and deadly, and opium and heroin, like all these, yes, they're bad, but that's very different than ayahuasca. It's very different.
Or cannabis.
Or cannabis,
Or
like these,
psilocybin.
or psilocybin, like these things actually help to heal addiction.
Yeah, and they come from the plant. Now, of course, I'm a former cocaine addict, and I know firsthand just how horrible that can be. But that is taking a plant. If I had actually been chewing on, I think they call them coca leaves.
Coca leaves. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I wouldn't have been having nosebleeds and sticking a needle in my arm.
No.
So very, very different when you are using a straight drug versus a plant.
Yes, especially in a ceremonial,
Yes.
reverent, conscious way.
Yeah.
The more reverence and respect we bring to anything we're engaged with, music, our instruments, our laptops,
Yes.
whatever,
Making love.
the more love we bring, the more reverence and consciousness we
Yeah.
bring to whatever we're working with, especially what we're putting into our body to become more of us with.
Yes.
The more beautiful the relationship.
Well, here's to a conscious, intentional life path for all of us. And thank you so much, Amanda, for this really enlightening, informative, and also fun conversation.
It was a delight. Here's to more.
Absolutely.
Yay.
Absolutely. All right. I'm sending you my
Lots of
love.
love. Me too.
Okay. There we go. Bye, hon.